evening, everybody, and welcome to Dialogue here on JCN. As you can see, I am on location again and very happy about it. I am at the wonderful grounds of the New Providence Community Center out at Blake Road, NPCC, and I am here with the amazing people from Hands for Hunger, and I'm so happy this is their third time coming on the show talking about the really incredible work that they are doing here. And I don't know if you can see, but their little slogan here is delivering fresh surplus food to those in need, and they do it very well. So I've got Ashley Lapine and Francis Burrows, and you guys both have critical roles here at Hands for Hunger. But I think some of the audience maybe doesn't even know yet what Hands for Hunger is. You should all know, but in case they don't, tell me, what is Hands for Hunger?
Well, firstly, we'd both like to thank, the whole team would like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to get the message out for the third time, specifically on Dialogue. But to tell you a little bit more about Hands for Hunger, we are a nonprofit program. We're a primarily food rescue program. We're a group that's committed to the elimination of hunger and reduction of food waste. And as I said, we primarily have done this through our food rescue efforts with the two refrigerator trucks.
I love this term that I think this is the first time you guys have used this term, because I think I would use it in everyday speech if I could. Food rescue. So what is food rescue? Because that's just awesome. I love that concept.
A food rescue model is based on the premise that there are enough resources, specifically food resources, within a community to serve that community. And it's just a case of the inequitable distribution of those resources. So particularly here in our community, we are inundated with the tourism industry, and we have a majority of our food comes from the tourism industry. Right. And so what we do using our two refrigerated trucks is we pick up fresh surplus food that would have otherwise gone to waste, so you otherwise would be throwing it at landfill. We pick it up with our two refrigerated trucks and then redistribute this not to individuals, but to programs you may be familiar with, like the Salvation Army and the Red Cross, after school children's programs, shelters, and they in turn serve this to individuals. So
this is, I mean, because, you know, I think for people who they hear this concept for the first time, some people really jump into it and some people are like, ew. So this is, you know, the leftover food on somebody's plate that they've maybe already cut at. And so just to dispel sort of these weird myths that exist in the world about what food is being rescued. This is good food.
It really is. It's a simple concept. So for most people, that's why it grabs them and they see the impact quite immediately. But again, we're talking about fresh, high quality surplus food. It's not been plated. It's just not been able to be used before. You know, fresh produce has a certain life. Perishable foods have a certain life.
Maybe, you've got cooked food, and you can just think over at some of our wonderful hotels. They have these ginormous buffets. All that food does not get eaten on that night, but because of legal reasons, as far as I understand, they can't then be like, hey, we're going to put the same mashed potatoes out tomorrow night. So those can get packaged up and given to people immediately.
Quite immediately. All of our food's picked up and redistributed, usually within same day, if not within 8 hours. And you touched upon some of the legal premises of donating food. Yeah. And just last year, I think after coming on your show, last April, the Good Samaritan Food Donation Act was passed, and this actually precludes food donors who give in good faith from being held liable. Right. And the reason why this works is that there's a three-pronged approach to food safety. Food donors who donate food to Hands for Hunger or any other entity, they have their impeccable food safety standards. Right. Specific to Hands for Hunger, we're all trained in food safety, and we also uphold those safety standards. And then with our recipient partners, so where we drop the food off to, we also uphold the same food safety standards. So you make sure both that the people who are giving the food, the people transporting the food and reallocating it, and then the shelters or Red Cross or whoever it is, you guys all are at this high level of food safety. You got it. Perfect. And so the Good Samaritan clause, law, however it worked, act, was really important because this was a big hiccup in Europe, in the States, for a lot of other food rescue programs. Love this. And so this is really great that the Bahamas jumped on the same bandwagon and has got that rolling. Now, I have to ask Francis though a question though, because you said 8 hours. 8 hour turnaround is fantastic. I hate to be the bad Bahamian, but you know, we always talk about how we're slow and you know, we don't get things moving, and you try and pick something up and somebody delivers it. It's supposed to come at 10 in the morning, it comes at 4 in the afternoon. How do you manage this? How do you get this going on?
All right, well, typically what the hotels do is when a buffet is finished, what they do is immediately anything that's still in the prep kitchen that has not gone out onto the buffet line is then immediately placed into aluminum foil containers, and from there it's already warmed, come down to the safe temperature to where it can be stored into their refrigeration units. And what happens then is the next morning we arrive with the truck. First thing, by 10 o'clock in the morning, we have picked up all of our panned foods from the night before, and we then redistribute these in refrigeration units as well. So
your truck's got refrigerators in here?
Yes, this is actually a big refrigerator on the back.
My AC's been acting up a little bit, so I may have to come take a few rides in your... I'll be there watching the food, I promise, very carefully. But that's great. So I guess part of that, though, is along with it, it's got to be expensive. You're running refrigerated trucks, you're doing pickups all the time. How does all that work with you guys having this sort of budget? That's got to be tough.
You talked about logistics, and it's a combination of managing our logistics very closely. So all of
you guys sound like FedEx or UPS. I don't know who it is.
Get logistics, right?
Got logistics,
yes. Yeah. So managing all of the supplies we use and our time as well, but also it comes through the generosity of people finding Hands for Hunger. As I said, it's a very common sense approach to take surplus and redistribute it to those who need it. And so we work with Variety Disposable Products for their aluminum pans, who give us a charitable discount. And we have a lot of support from the community. So not only with our supplies, but the trucks were sponsored. We also receive gas sponsorship.
Fantastic. So this really does seem to be a community effort that, I mean, you guys are doing, say, the hard work of doing the running around, but it seems like you've got
It takes a combined effort to keep the trucks on the road every day.
And do you do any work with government to sort of work out if there's a new program that comes online? They're like, oh look, there's this new social services program, these guys are accredited in food safety and all of that. Do they talk to you and say that they could be a good possible recipient of your food rescue items?
We have pretty close relationships, specifically with the Ministry of Social Development, especially with their urban renewal programs. They have many arms. Right now, we're only consistently delivering to one of those centers, but have partnerships with two others.
So you're actually providing food for one
urban renewal centers,
fantastic.
right?
Oh, that's really good. Okay, so this really is public, private, NGO, everything all working well together. What are the hiccups you have on the road, Francis, though? Because, I mean, I know what it's like just trying to drive around Nassau in my own little car, let alone having to do multiple stops. How many stops do you do in a day?
Well, typically on our busiest of days, we can do 10 stops, 10 to 12 stops in a day. And that's just the delivery side of it. That's not the pickup side. If you add the pickups to it, we're probably doing 20 stops in total.
Fantastic.
20 to 25, depending on who has food that day. So yeah, we start at 8 in the morning. You know, we try to do it in a way that we come against the traffic roads.
Yeah.
So
You're
we
going
start
in the opposite
direction where
Brilliant.
traffic comes. And you know, when school traffic comes into play at 3 o'clock, we try to be back at the office.
So you must be excited for summer then. You're thinking that this is great. The 3 months of summer, at least you don't have the school traffic going on.
Yeah, we don't have the school traffic, but the other side to summer would be the heat. The heat works against us every time going in and out of the trucks, because the refrigeration is on. The minute you open the door, you know, you lose some of the temperature, so the summer works against us with that. It makes it a little bit harder to keep that temperature
You guys
steady.
need some of these, the cool, you know, the new Priuses that have the solar panels on the roof that somehow power the air conditioning. Exactly, you need those to power the refrigeration units. I think could work well. But so you guys have 2 trucks, is that right?
Yes.
And so is one truck just a pickup truck and one truck's a drop-off truck, or how does all that work as well?
Well, no, right now there's one truck that's currently on the road.
Okay.
We switch between them at the current time. The second truck is used for, what do you call, impromptu pickups.
Okay,
so when the driver is currently out on the road, like now, if somebody calls in and they have something that the driver cannot reach, or it's really inaccessible for him to come back up, let's say Lyford Key. Right now, the second truck, I can hop in, go to Lyford Key, pick that stuff
that's great.
up.
So you don't miss pickups then. You make sure that you're getting as much. This is again the logistics side, that you're getting everything. And how do the donors How do the donors tell you? Do they email you? Is there a little website? They just click it and they say, hey, I've got food, come pick me up? How does that all work?
I think Francis touched upon this, but having the flexibility we do with the 2 trucks, with over 40 food donors, we need to keep in close communication with them all, because there's a variety of donors who are scheduled from day to day. We have a Monday through Sunday pickup.
Okay.
And those vary. We may be seeing donors a few times a week, once per week, but essentially what happens is Francis and Delrado maintain constant communication with all of our donors.
Okay. Is it right now that you're meeting the needs with these, 40 donors, that's fantastic. Is enough food being donated by them to meet the needs of all the shelters and the groups that you're working with, or would it still be great if other donors were able to come in? How does it work? Where are we in meeting these needs?
Right, where we've made large strides and huge leaps with food rescue. We've redistributed more than 260,000 meals to date.
Fantastic.
We still are seeing a huge gap. So although we currently have 18 recipient agencies, so Francis was talking about drops earlier, we are delivering to 18 programs. We're delivering on average 2,100 meals a week, and they're serving 8,500. So we're nowhere near meeting the complete needs. They're seeing a great amount of support. It's nutritious food they're seeing. It's different types of foods that they wouldn't otherwise see, but we're definitely not meeting the needs of our current agencies completely.
So 2,100 versus 8,500.
And then you still have over 40 agencies on our waiting list who are not yet receiving support from Hands for Hunger. So we still have a long way to go with new partnerships with food donors and increasing the food we pick up from our current donors.
So do we have all of the major hotels and major restaurants on board as being donors? Is that how it works? Or the supermarkets even? Who is donating right now? You said the tourism sector is a big part of it, but how does that play out in reality?
Right, most of the hotels all along the Cable Beach Strip are food donors, as well as Francis said earlier, we pick up on PI, and Atlantis has four separate locations on property that we pick up from. Convention Center at Atlantis, just
lots of stuff, I'm sure.
You can imagine the banquets and conferences and all of the like that happen on a property like Atlantis, and so they've been one of our largest food donors.
Fantastic.
But our food donors span the hotel industry, wholesalers, farms, grocers, bakeries.
Oh, great. Mm-hmm. So there really is a range of food then too, because this is often a problem when you do have food programs, at least in the countries I work in. Oftentimes proteins are really missing, or certain aspects are always missing. So they'll have, because rice is cheap, so you'll get a lot of rice, or you'll get a lot of some type of grain. But getting in cheese or meat and the more expensive things just doesn't happen. So you guys are supplying, I suppose, this much more balanced meal.
Right. Last year we were redistributing, or the food that we redistributed last year, just less than half of that consisted of high need items. So we're talking about meats, dairy, produce, like you're saying, the foods that tend to be typically a little bit more expensive.
Right. More expensive and more difficult. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, but then when we come back, we're going to talk not just about sort of the operations, but the big picture of food security in the world and here in the Bahamas. I'm sure you guys all know this. Highest food price increases since 1974 just happened. So how is this going to affect us right here in the Bahamas? And what can you do to help all the people right here, our own Bahamians, who need your assistance? So come back with us after the break.
He breaks you the bush crying, oh Lord, I got dead. It's my short, she running out the house, forget she's scared of